The small mining colony on planet Epsilon 7 was having a normal day until the sky turned dark. Giant ships appeared above the settlement, blocking out the sun. The colonists looked up in fear as the massive vessels descended. These were Kraven warships, and everyone knew what that meant. The dragon-like aliens had come to conquer. The Kraven soldiers poured out of their ships like a flood. They had scales that shimmered in different colors, wings folded against their backs, and eyes that glowed with an eerie light. They were tall, much taller than humans, and their claws clicked against the metal floors as they moved through the colony. Within an hour, every human in the settlement was captured and locked in holding cells. Maya Brooks was only 24 years old. She worked as an engineer for the Colonial Defense Force, fixing defensive systems and keeping the colony safe. When the attack happened, she was outside checking the shield generators. She tried to fight back with her service pistol, but the Kraven were too strong and too many. They knocked the weapon from her hand and dragged her into their command center. Commander Xyrith watched from above as his soldiers brought in the prisoners. He was old by Kraven standards, over 300 years, and he had seen many conquered worlds. Humans were just another species to add to the empire. Nothing special about them, or so he thought. His red scales caught the light as he moved to get a better view of the interrogation chamber below. The interrogator was named Vorak, and he was known for his cruelty. He enjoyed making prisoners suffer. Vorak circled around Maya as she hung in the air, held by invisible energy fields that wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her brown hair was messy and blood dripped from a cut on her forehead, but her green eyes stared at Vorak without fear. "Tell me where your military bases are," Vorak demanded. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Tell me where your warships hide in this system." Maya looked straight at him. "No," she said simply. Vorak laughed, a terrible sound. He picked up a small device from the table. It was called a neural disruptor, and it was the worst torture tool the Kraven had. The device sent pain signals directly into the brain without causing any physical damage. It made victims feel like their entire body was burning and being torn apart at the same time. Vorak activated the device. Maya's scream filled the chamber immediately. Her body jerked against the restraints as wave after wave of agony washed through her. Every nerve in her body felt like it was on fire. The pain was so intense that her vision went white. Xyrith watched from his observation platform. He had seen this many times before. Most prisoners broke within 20 minutes. Some lasted an hour if they were strong. But this human girl kept screaming, kept suffering, and never said a word about military positions or defense codes. 1 hour passed, then 2. Vorak kept asking questions between the waves of pain. But Maya only gasped for air and said nothing useful. Her voice became hoarse from screaming. Sweat poured down her face. Her whole body shook uncontrollably, but she did not break. At the 3-hour mark, something strange happened. Vorak pushed the device to its maximum setting, and Maya actually laughed. It was a broken, painful sound, but it was definitely laughter. Vorak stepped back, confused and angry. How could she laugh while experiencing the worst pain imaginable? Xyrith leaned forward, fascinated. In all his long years, he had never seen anything like this. What kind of species could laugh at torture? He accessed the colony's database and began reading about humans. He learned about their history, their wars, their tendency to fight even when losing. He read about their heroes and their stories. The more he read, the more unsettled he became. 4 hours passed. Maya hung limp in the restraints, barely conscious. Her lips moved constantly, but no sound came out. Xyrith realized she was counting. Even in this state, her mind was still working, still resisting. She was counting her breaths or counting time. She was doing anything to keep her mind focused and away from the pain. Finally, Vorak gave up. He was breathing hard, frustrated that he could not break this small human. "Take her to the cells," he ordered the guards. "We will try again tomorrow when she is recovered." The guards released the energy restraints, and Maya collapsed. They dragged her out of the chamber, her feet barely touching the ground. As they passed below Xyrith's observation point, her head lifted slightly. For just a moment, her eyes met his. There was no plea for mercy in those eyes, no defeat. There was only a quiet defiance that made Xyrith's scales prickle with an emotion he did not recognize. The guards threw Maya into a cell with 3 other prisoners. One was a soldier named Kyle Patterson who had a broken arm. The other 2 were colonists, Ben Morrison and Claire Hughes. They all stared at Maya in shock as she lay on the cold floor, gasping for breath. 4 hours, Kyle whispered. The guards were talking about it. Nobody has ever lasted 4 hours with Vorak. Maya could not speak. Her throat was too damaged from screaming, but she managed to nod. Claire, who was a kind woman, helped Maya sit up against the wall. Ben brought her water from the small dispenser in the corner. Maya drank carefully, wincing as the liquid went down her raw throat. Through the small window in their cell, they could see out into space. The Kraven command ship sat docked at the colony's main platform. Beyond it, the asteroid field drifted slowly in the darkness. Claire suddenly grabbed Maya's arm and pointed at the window. "Look," Claire said quietly. "Do you see that light?" In the distance, a tiny light was flashing in a pattern. 3 short flashes, 3 long flashes, 3 short flashes. It repeated over and over. "That's Morse code," Claire said. She had worked in communications before. "It says help coming. Hold on." Maya felt tears fill her eyes, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of hope. Someone had seen the attack. Someone knew they were prisoners here. The Colonial Defense Force had not abandoned them. Help was coming, and all they had to do was survive until it arrived. In his private quarters, Zyrith could not stop thinking about the human girl. He watched the interrogation recording again and again. He studied her face, trying to understand what he had seen. The Kraven Empire had conquered 17 different species across multiple star systems. None of them had been like humans. An alert suddenly flashed on his console. Long-range sensors had detected ships entering the system. Human ships. Not just a few, but many. A whole battle fleet was approaching at high speed. Zyrith felt his blood run cold. The humans were not coming to negotiate or to beg for their people back. They were coming to fight. Commander Zyrith stood and walked to his window. He looked out at the stars and wondered what he had just witnessed. Something told him that the Kraven Empire had made a terrible mistake when they decided to attack this colony. Humans were not like other species. They did not surrender easily. And if that girl was any example of what humans were capable of, this battle was going to be unlike anything the Kraven had faced before. The war was coming, and it was coming fast. Part 2. The human battle fleet moved through space like angry wolves hunting their prey. 12 warships traveled together in tight formation, their weapons armed and ready. At the center of the fleet was the carrier ship Liberty's Dawn, commanded by Captain Richard Stone. Richard was 58 years old with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He was known throughout the Colonial Defense Force for 2 things: his brilliant tactics and his absolute refusal to leave anyone behind. On the bridge of Liberty's Dawn, the crew worked quickly and efficiently. Everyone knew what was at stake. Their people were prisoners on that colony, suffering at the hands of the Kraven. The thought made Richard's jaw tighten with anger. "Captain, we are detecting 8 Kraven warships in the system," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her tactical station. "They outgun us by a significant margin." "Noted," Richard said calmly. "But they don't have what we have." "What's that, sir?" Amy asked. "Anger," Richard said. "Pure, focused anger. These lizards took our people. They hurt our people. Now we're going to show them why that was a mistake." The fleet continued its approach. Richard did not send any messages to the Kraven. There would be no negotiations, no warnings. The time for talking was over. When they reached firing range, the human ships opened fire immediately. Railgun rounds shot through space at incredible speed. The first Kraven destroyer did not even have time to raise its shields before the rounds tore through its hull. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The battle had begun. Back on the colony, alarms screamed throughout the Kraven command center. Zyrith rushed to the bridge of his ship, the Crimson Talon, which was still docked at the colony. His crew was already at their stations preparing for combat. "Status report," Zyrith commanded. "Human fleet attacking," his tactical officer reported. "They destroyed the destroyer Swift Vengeance with their first salvo. The remaining ships are engaging now." Zyrith watched the tactical display. The human ships moved in ways he had never seen before. They dove into close range where their smaller size became an advantage. They used the colony's structures as cover, firing and then moving before return fire could hit them. One human destroyer took heavy damage, but instead of retreating, it accelerated and rammed straight into a Kraven cruiser. Both ships exploded together. "They are insane," Forex said from behind Zyrith. "They fight like wild animals." "No," Zyrith said quietly. "They fight like they have something to protect. That makes them far more dangerous." In the prison cell, Maya and the others felt the colony shake as weapons fire struck the outer sections. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear explosions. Kyle stood at the cell door, working on the locking mechanism with a piece of metal he had pried from the wall. "They're here," he said with a fierce smile. "I told you they would come." "How long do we have?" Ben asked nervously. "No idea," Kyle admitted. "But I'd rather die fighting than sitting in this cell." Maya pulled herself to her feet. Her body still ached from the torture, but adrenaline was pushing through the pain. She moved to the window and watched the battle outside. Human fighters zipped through space, their pilots performing impossible maneuvers to avoid enemy fire. She saw a Craven warship venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The humans were winning. Suddenly, the cell door opened. Craven guards rushed in with weapons pointed at the prisoners. Maya's heart sank. Were they going to execute them now? That was standard procedure for many species when a rescue attempt was made. But the guards did not fire. Instead, they grabbed the prisoners roughly and dragged them out into the corridor. "Move," one guard growled in broken English. "Commander wants you on main ship." They were force-marched through the colony toward the docking bay where the Crimson Talon waited. Through windows along the way, Maya caught glimpses of the ongoing battle. Another Craven ship was burning, pieces of its hull spinning away into space. A human cruiser flew past, so close that Maya could see the name painted on its side. Liberty's Dawn. Her heart soared. That was Captain Stone's ship. Everyone in the Colonial Defense Force knew about Richard Stone. If he was here, then they had a real chance. On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Xyrith made a decision. "Prepare to undock," he ordered. "We are leaving this system." "Commander, we cannot retreat," Vorak protested. "The Empire does not run from battle." "The Empire has never fought humans before," Xyrith replied. "Look at the tactical display. We have lost 3 ships and 2 more are crippled. The humans are not slowing down. If we stay, we will all die." It was not the complete truth. Yes, the tactical situation was bad, but the Craven could still fight. The real reason Xyrith wanted to leave was more complicated. He kept thinking about Maya, about her defiance, about the way she had laughed at torture. Something about humans made him want to avoid killing them if possible. "What about the prisoners?" Vorak asked. "Bring them aboard," Xyrith said. "They are our leverage." The prisoners were shoved into the lower hold of the Crimson Talon and locked in a secure room. The guards left and the prisoners were alone again. Kyle immediately started looking for a way out, but the walls were solid metal with no weak points. "We're on their command ship now," Claire said, her voice shaking. "What do they want with us?" "Hostages," Maya said. Her voice was getting stronger now. "They're going to try to use us as bargaining chips." "Will it work?" Ben asked. Maya thought about what she knew of Captain Stone, of the Colonial Defense Force, of humanity's history. "No," she said finally. "It won't work. Our people don't negotiate with hostage takers. Stone will demand our release, and if they don't comply, he'll attack anyway." "That's crazy," Ben said. "We'll die." "Maybe," Maya agreed. "But that's who we are. We don't let fear control us. We don't let bullies win just because they threaten violence. If we die, at least the Craven will learn that humans are not easy prey." The Crimson Talon undocked from the colony and began to move away. On the bridge, Xyrith received an incoming transmission. "Put it through," he ordered. Captain Richard Stone's face appeared on the main screen. His expression was hard as stone, matching his name. "Craven Commander, this is Captain Stone of the Colonial Defense Force. You have 42 of our people. Release them immediately." "Or what, human?" Xyrith asked, keeping his voice steady even though his hearts were beating fast. "Or I will destroy your ship," Richard said simply. "I don't care if our people are aboard. I will turn you into debris floating in space. You have 10 minutes to launch them in escape pods. After that, you're dead." The transmission ended. Xyrith stared at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew was silent. They had all heard the human captain's words. There was no bluff in that voice. Richard Stone meant exactly what he said. "He is lying," Vorak said. "No commander would kill his own people." "You're wrong," Xyrith said. "Everything I have read about humans says they value principles over individual lives. They would rather die than surrender their values. That captain will attack, and he will do it knowing his people are aboard." Xyrith looked at the tactical display again. The human fleet was reforming, preparing for another attack. 2 more Craven ships had been destroyed in the last few minutes. The humans were not stopping. They were not slowing down. They were coming like a force of nature, unstoppable and terrifying. In the holding room, Maya pressed her ear against the door. She could hear Kraven voices arguing in their language. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. They were panicking. Something was happening that they had not expected. "What's going on?" Kyle asked. "I think Stone scared them," Maya said with a small smile. "I think they just realized that humans don't play by their rules." Minutes passed like hours. Then suddenly guards burst into the room again. "Move," they ordered. "Into the escape pods, now." The prisoners looked at each other in confusion. Why were they being released? The guards shoved them down another corridor and into a row of small escape pods. Each pod could hold 3 people. Maya, Kyle, and Claire got into one pod together. Ben went into another with 2 colonists. "What's happening?" Claire asked a guard. The guard did not answer. He just sealed the pod door and activated the launch sequence. Maya felt the acceleration push her back into the seat as the pod shot away from the Crimson Talon. Through the small window, Maya looked back at the Kraven command ship. She could see the bridge through its large forward windows. Standing there, visible even at this distance, was a tall Kraven with red scales. He was looking straight at their pod. Their eyes met across the void of space. Maya did not know what to think. This was the commander who had watched her torture. But he was also the commander who had just released them. Why? What had changed his mind? The pod's thrusters fired again, pushing them toward the human fleet. Maya could see the Liberty's dawn growing larger in the window. They were going home. Against all odds, they were going home. She thought about the Kraven commander one more time before forcing herself to look away. Maybe some mysteries were better left unsolved. What mattered now was that they had survived, and the humans had proven once again that they would move heaven and earth to save their own. Part 3. The escape pods were picked up by human recovery ships within minutes. Maya felt strong hands helping her out of the pod and onto the deck of a rescue shuttle. Medical personnel immediately surrounded the freed prisoners, checking for injuries and offering water and blankets. "Easy now, ma'am," a young medic said to Maya. "You're safe. We're taking you to the medical bay on Liberty's Dawn." Maya nodded but could not speak yet. Her throat was still raw from screaming during the torture. She let herself be guided to a seat and strapped in for the short flight to the carrier ship. Beside her, Kyle was getting his broken arm properly splinted, while Claire cried quietly with relief. The shuttle docked with Liberty's Dawn, and the former prisoners were rushed through clean white corridors to the medical bay. Dr. Lisa Grant was waiting for them. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands. She took one look at Maya and immediately guided her to a private examination room. "Lieutenant Brooks, I'm Dr. Grant," she said. "I know you've been through hell, but I need to check you over. Can you tell me what they did to you?" Maya managed to whisper a few words about the neural disruptor. Dr. Grant's face went pale. 4 hours? She asked quietly. Maya nodded. The doctor worked quickly, running scans and checking Maya's vital signs. The neural disruptor left no physical damage, which was part of what made it so terrible. All the harm was done to the nervous system and the mind. Dr. Grant gave Maya medication to help with the pain and something to help her sleep. "You need rest," the doctor said firmly. "Your body went through extreme trauma. I'm keeping you here for observation for at least 3 days." As Dr. Grant left, another visitor arrived. Captain Richard Stone stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes, but he smiled when he saw Maya was awake. "Lieutenant Brooks," he said, stepping inside. "May I?" Maya nodded, and Richard pulled up a chair beside her bed. He sat down with a heavy sigh. "Sergeant Patterson told me what happened," Richard said quietly. 4 hours of torture and you didn't break. That's remarkable courage." "I just counted," Maya whispered. "Counted my breaths. Counted the seconds. Reminded myself that someone would come for us." "Someone always comes," Richard said firmly. "That's the promise every human makes to every other human. We don't leave our people behind, ever." He paused, looking thoughtful. "The Kraven commander released you voluntarily. In 20 years of fighting them, I've never seen that happen. Did he say anything to you?" Maya shook her head. "No, but he watched my interrogation. I saw him up on the observation platform. He looked interested, maybe curious. I don't know what he was thinking." "Whatever it was, it saved your lives," Richard said. "After he released you, his ships retreated from the system. We could have chased them, destroyed them all, but I let them go. Seemed like the right thing to do after he showed mercy." Richard stood up to leave but turned back at the door. Get some rest, Lieutenant. When you're recovered, we'll talk about what comes next. You've earned yourself a commendation and probably a promotion, but for now just focus on healing. After he left, Maya lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. The medication was making her drowsy, but her mind was still racing. She kept seeing the Kraven commander's face in her memory, those alien eyes looking at her with something that might have been respect. Over the next few days, Maya slowly recovered. The nightmares came every time she slept, dreams of pain and restraints and Vorek's cruel laugh. But each morning she woke up, and Dr. Grant was there with medication and encouragement. Kyle visited often, bringing news from the other rescued prisoners. They were all recovering, all alive. On the third day, Maya was cleared to leave the medical bay. She was given quarters on Liberty's Dawn and told to take it easy, but Maya had never been good at taking it easy. She found herself wandering the ship, watching the crew work, thinking about what had happened. The Kraven fleet had completely withdrawn from the sector. Intelligence reports suggested that Commander Zyreth had been recalled to the Kraven homeworld to answer questions about his actions. Releasing prisoners was considered cowardice in Kraven culture. He was likely facing severe punishment, possibly even execution. Maya found herself on the observation deck looking out at the stars. The colony on Epsilon 7 had been evacuated and abandoned. It was too dangerous to maintain now that the Kraven knew about it. All those years of work gone in a day, penny for your thoughts? Maya turned to see Amy Clark, the tactical officer, standing nearby with 2 cups of coffee. Amy offered one to Maya with a friendly smile. Thanks, Maya said, taking the cup gratefully. Just thinking about everything that happened. You're famous, you know, Amy said. Word has spread through the whole fleet about the engineer who laughed at torture. People are calling you the unbreakable. Maya made a face. I'm not unbreakable. I was terrified the whole time. Courage isn't about not being afraid, Amy said. It's about doing the right thing even when you're terrified. You could have told them what they wanted to know. Nobody would have blamed you after that kind of torture. Yes, they would have, Maya said quietly. I would have blamed myself. If my information led to more people getting hurt or killed, I could never live with that. Better to suffer myself than cause others to suffer. Amy nodded thoughtfully. That's very human of you. I wonder if the Kraven commander understood that. Maybe that's why he let you go. Maybe, Maya said. Or maybe he just didn't want to deal with Captain Stone's anger. Stone scared him pretty good with that ultimatum. They both laughed at that. Richard Stone was a legend for good reason. He backed up his threats with action and everyone knew it. The days turned into weeks. Maya was promoted to senior lieutenant and offered a position at fleet headquarters on Earth. It was a safe job, prestigious, with good pay. Most people would have jumped at the opportunity, but Maya turned it down. I want to stay out here, she told Richard when he asked her about it, out on the frontier. This is where the real work happens. This is where humans push forward and explore and build new things. Richard nodded like he had expected that answer. You're like me, Lieutenant. Some people are meant for offices and meetings. Others are meant for the edge of known space. I'll find you a good posting, don't worry. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Commander Zyreth stood in chains before the Kraven High Council. The council chamber was enormous, with seats rising up in tiers all around him. Hundreds of Kraven officials watched as he was accused of cowardice and betraying the Empire. You released the prisoners, the chief counselor said, his voice booming through the chamber. You retreated from battle. You showed weakness to an inferior species. What do you have to say for yourself? Zyreth stood tall despite the chains. I made a tactical decision. The humans were winning. If we had stayed, we would have all died. By releasing the prisoners, I ensured the survival of my crew and my ship. Lies, Vorak shouted from the audience. He had testified against Zyreth, describing how the commander had become obsessed with the human prisoners. He was weak. He let one human female break his spirit. I saw it with my own eyes. The council members muttered among themselves. The chief counselor leaned forward. Is this true? Did you become attached to a prisoner? Zyreth thought carefully before answering. He could lie, could deny everything, could blame the situation. But something Maya had shown him was the value of truth even when it hurt. I watched that human endure 4 hours of neural disruptor torture, Zyreth said clearly. I watched her refuse to break. I watched her laugh in the face of pain. And I realized something. We Kraven think we are strong because we conquer others. But humans have a different kind of strength. They endure. They protect their own. They fight for principles, not just territory. That is a strength we do not understand, and that is why we will never truly defeat them. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. The chief counselor banged his staff on the floor for silence. "You are stripped of your rank and command," the counselor declared. "You will be exiled to the frontier territories. Let your shame serve as a warning to others." Cyrith accepted the judgment without protest. As guards led him away, he thought about Maya one last time. He wondered if she had recovered, if she was safe now. He hoped so. She deserved to survive after everything she had endured. Back on Liberty's dawn, Maya received her new assignment. She was being posted to a frontier colony called New Haven, where she would help build and maintain defensive systems. It was exactly the kind of work she wanted. Before she left, Kyle found her in the common area. "Heard you're shipping out tomorrow," he said. "Yeah," Maya said. "New Haven colony."
"What about you?"
"Staying with the fleet," Kyle said. "They need experienced soldiers, and I'm not ready to settle down yet." He paused, then stuck out his hand. "It was an honor surviving with you, Lieutenant." Maya shook his hand firmly. "Same to you, Sergeant. Stay safe out there." As Maya packed her things that night, she thought about how much had changed in such a short time. She had been tortured, rescued, and promoted. She had seen humans at their bravest and most determined. She had also seen that even enemies could show mercy. The galaxy was a big place, full of different species with different values. Humans were new to the galactic stage, still learning their place. Part 4, 6 months had passed since the incident at Epsilon 7. The rescued colonists had been relocated to safer territories, and the Colonial Defense Force had strengthened its presence along the frontier. The Kraven Empire had been quiet, no new attacks reported, but everyone knew it was just a matter of time before they tried again. Maya arrived at New Haven Colony on a cold morning. The settlement was built on a planet with 2 moons and endless forests of purple trees. The colonists here numbered about 5,000, and they were mostly farmers and researchers. Maya's job was to upgrade their defensive systems and train local security forces. She threw herself into the work with enthusiasm. Every day brought new challenges: fixing old shield generators, installing modern sensor arrays, teaching colonists how to use defensive weapons. The work was hard but satisfying. These people depended on her expertise to keep them safe, and Maya took that responsibility seriously. At night, she still had nightmares about the torture. Sometimes she woke up gasping, her body remembering pain that was no longer there. But the nightmares came less frequently now. Time was helping her heal, along with regular talks with a counselor over video link. One evening, as Maya was reviewing sensor logs in her office, the colony's communication system lit up with an urgent message. It was from fleet headquarters, marked high priority. Maya opened it immediately. The message was from Captain Stone. His face appeared on her screen, and he looked worried. "Lieutenant Brooks, we have a situation," Richard said. "A Kraven transport ship has entered human territory under a white flag. They're requesting asylum. The ship only has 1 passenger, former Commander Zyrith. He's asking specifically to speak with you." Maya felt her heart skip a beat. Zyrith, the dragon who had watched her torture, the one who had released her. He was here in human space asking for asylum. "He claims to have information about Kraven military plans," Richard continued, "but he says he'll only share it with you. I need you to take a transport to the orbital station above New Haven. A security team will be there to protect you. This is voluntary, Lieutenant. If you don't want to face him again, I completely understand." Maya sat in silence for a moment, thinking. Part of her wanted to refuse, wanted nothing to do with the alien who had watched her suffer. But another part of her was curious. Why had he released them? Why was he here now? What did he want? "I'll do it," Maya said finally. "When do I leave?" "Transport launches in 2 hours," Richard said. "And Maya, be careful. We don't know if this is genuine or some kind of trap." Maya packed quickly and caught the transport to the orbital station. The journey took 3 hours, giving her plenty of time to think about what she would say to Zyrith. What do you say to someone who saved you but also watched you suffer? The orbital station was a military facility, heavily armed and protected. Maya was met by a security team led by Commander Gary Pierce, a no-nonsense officer with gray hair and a stern expression. "Lieutenant Brooks," Gary said, shaking her hand. The Craven is being held in a secure conference room. We'll have weapons pointed at him the whole time through one-way glass. Say the word and we'll remove him immediately. Understood? Understood, Maya said, though her mouth was dry with nervousness. Gary led her through several security checkpoints until they reached the conference room. Through the window, Maya could see Xyrith sitting at a table. He looked different from her memories. Smaller somehow, even though he was still much larger than a human. His red scales seemed duller, and his wings were folded tight against his back. He wore simple clothing instead of his military armor. Ready? Gary asked. Maya nodded and walked through the door. Xyrith looked up as she entered. His eyes widened slightly, and he stood up immediately in what looked like a gesture of respect. Maya noticed his hands were bound in front of him with high-tech restraints. Lieutenant Brooks, Xyrith said. His English was heavily accented but clear. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Maya sat down across from him, keeping the table between them. Why are you here? She asked directly. Why ask for asylum? Xyrith sat back down slowly. Because I was exiled after what happened at Epsilon 7. Because I watched you endure 4 hours of torture without breaking, and it changed something in me. Because I have come to believe that the Kraven Empire is wrong, and humanity offers a better path forward. You watched me suffer, Maya said, her voice hard. For hours you stood there and watched. Why didn't you stop it? I have asked myself that question many times, Xyrith said quietly. The truth is that I did not fully understand what I was seeing. In Kraven culture, torture is normal. Expected. We are taught that strength comes from inflicting pain and accepting pain. But you showed me something different. You showed me that strength can also come from endurance, from protecting others, from refusing to break even when breaking would be easier. That doesn't answer my question, Maya said. Why didn't you stop it? Xyrith looked down at his bound hands. Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid of appearing weak in front of my crew. Because it took me hours to understand what I was really witnessing. By the time I truly comprehended your courage, the damage was done. I am sorry, Lieutenant Brooks. I know that is inadequate, but it is the truth. Maya sat in silence for a long moment. She wanted to be angry with him, wanted to blame him for her suffering. But looking at this former commander sitting in chains, she realized something. He had paid a heavy price for his moment of mercy. He had lost everything. His rank, his honor, his place in his society. What information do you have? Maya asked, changing the subject. Xyrith leaned forward slightly. The Kraven Empire is planning a major offensive against human colonies. They are gathering a fleet of over 100 warships. They see humanity as a threat that must be eliminated before you grow too strong. The attack will come within 6 months. Maya felt ice in her stomach. 100 warships was a massive force, far larger than anything the Colonial Defense Force could handle. Why tell us this? She asked. You're betraying your own people. They are not my people anymore, Xyrith said firmly. And even if they were, I would still warn you. The Kraven Empire operates on fear and cruelty. Your species operates on courage and loyalty. I have decided which side I want to support. What do you want in return? Maya asked. Asylum isn't free. I want nothing, Xyrith said. No rewards, no guarantees. If you humans decide to execute me for my crimes, I will accept that judgment. I am here because it is the right thing to do, not because I expect gratitude. Maya studied his face, trying to detect any sign of deception, but all she saw was sincerity and a deep weariness. This was a being who had lost everything and was trying to make amends the only way he knew how. I'll need to verify your information, Maya said. Fleet intelligence will want to question you extensively. I understand, Xyrith said. I will cooperate fully. Maya stood to leave but paused at the door. Why did you specifically ask for me? She asked. Xyrith met her eyes. Because you deserved to see that your courage had consequences. You did not break during torture, and that simple act of defiance changed the course of my life. I wanted you to know that your suffering was not meaningless. It created change, even in someone like me. Maya left the room without responding. Outside, Commander Pierce was waiting with a concerned expression. Well, he asked. His information needs to be verified, Maya said. But I think he's telling the truth. I think he genuinely wants to help us. That's a big risk, Gary said. Trusting a former enemy. All trust is a risk, Maya replied. But sometimes the risk is worth taking. Over the next few days, Fleet Intelligence confirmed Xyrith's information through their own sources. The Craven Empire was indeed preparing a massive offensive. Thanks to the warning, the Colonial Defense Force began preparing their own defenses, calling in reinforcements from Earth and other colonies. Maya returned to New Haven but found herself thinking about Xyreth often. She contacted Captain Stone to check on the former commander's status. He's cooperating fully, Richard told her, providing detailed information about Craven tactics, ship designs, and military structure. The intelligence he's giving us is invaluable. Some officers want to give him asylum, while others think he should be imprisoned as a war criminal. It's being debated at the highest levels. What do you think should happen to him? Maya asked. Richard was quiet for a moment. I think people can change. I think someone who is willing to give up everything to do the right thing deserves a second chance. But it's not my decision to make. It'll be up to the civilian government. Maya understood. The decision was complicated because Xyreth had been part of a military force that had hurt humans. But he had also saved lives by releasing the prisoners and was now helping to prevent a larger war. That night, Maya recorded a statement for the government officials who would decide Xyreth's fate. In her statement, she explained what had happened at Epsilon 7 and how Xyreth had shown mercy when he could have let them all die. She recommended that he be granted asylum with certain conditions, including continued cooperation with human intelligence. I believe in second chances, Maya said to the camera. I believe people can change and grow. Commander Xyreth watched me suffer, but he also saved my life. That counts for something. If we humans claim to be better. Part 5. 3 months after Xyreth's arrival, the human government made its decision. He would be granted asylum with conditions. He would work with human military intelligence, help train soldiers in Craven tactics, and remain under supervision. If he violated any terms or if his information proved false, he would face trial for war crimes. Xyreth accepted these terms without hesitation. The Craven offensive that Xyreth had warned about came exactly when he predicted. 112 Craven warships emerged at the edge of human space, targeting 3 major colonies simultaneously. But thanks to Xyreth's intelligence, the Colonial Defense Force was ready. Human ships were positioned in defensive formations using tactics that Xyreth had suggested. When the Craven attacked, they found themselves facing weapons that exploited weaknesses in their shields that only an insider would know about. The battle lasted 6 days, and when it was over, the Craven fleet had been shattered. They retreated with less than half their ships remaining. It was humanity's greatest military victory since entering the galactic stage. The Craven Empire sued for peace, agreeing to recognize human territorial claims and cease all hostile actions. The war was over, won not just through weapons but through the courage of one woman who refused to break and one alien who chose to change. After the victory celebrations died down, Maya received a message asking her to report to fleet headquarters on Earth. She had not been back to humanity's homeworld in years. The journey took 2 weeks on a fast transport, and when she arrived, she was surprised to find herself being escorted to a government building in Geneva. Captain Richard Stone met her at the entrance with a smile. Welcome home, Lieutenant. Or should I say Commander? You're being promoted again. Promoted for what? Maya asked, genuinely confused. For being the catalyst that changed everything, Richard said. Your courage during that interrogation inspired Xyreth to question his entire culture. His defection and information saved thousands of human lives. The government wants to recognize your contribution. Maya was led into a large ceremony hall filled with officials, military officers, and journalists. She was awarded the Star of Valor, humanity's highest military honor, for her actions during the Epsilon 7 incident. She was also promoted to the rank of commander and offered a position as liaison between human forces and allied alien species. There's someone else who wanted to see you receive this, Richard said quietly as the ceremony concluded. Xyreth entered the room flanked by 2 guards. He was wearing simple civilian clothes and his restraints had been removed. When he saw Maya in her new uniform with the Star of Valor pinned to her chest, he bowed deeply in the Craven gesture of profound respect. Commander Brooks, Xyreth said. Congratulations on your honor. It is well deserved. Thank you, Maya said. It still felt strange talking to him, but the old anger had faded. I heard you've been helping with the war effort. Captain Stone tells me your information was crucial to our victory. I merely provided what I knew, Xyreth said humbly. Your people did the rest. Human courage and determination won that battle, not my intelligence reports. An awkward silence fell between them. So much history existed in that silence, both painful and hopeful. Finally, Maya spoke. "I forgive you," she said quietly, "for watching and not stopping it. I forgive you because you made things right in the end. You gave up everything to help us." Zyrith's eyes glistened with moisture. Maya had learned that Craven could cry, though they rarely did. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Those words mean more to me than you can know." Over the following months, Maya and Zyrith worked together frequently as part of the new alliance between humans and reformed Craven. Not all Craven agreed with Zyrith's choices. The Empire had fractured, with some factions still hostile, while others, inspired by Zyrith's example, sought peace with humanity. Zyrith proved to be a valuable teacher. He trained human soldiers in Craven combat techniques and helped diplomats understand Craven culture. But more importantly, he became a symbol of change, proof that even those raised in cruelty could choose a better path. Maya's new role as liaison kept her busy traveling between colonies and meeting with various alien species. The galaxy was full of different cultures, some friendly and some hostile. But everywhere she went, people had heard the story of the human engineer who had endured torture without breaking, and the Craven commander who had been changed by her courage. 1 year after the war ended, Maya returned to the ruins of Epsilon 7. The colony was being rebuilt as a memorial site, a place to remember what had been lost and what had been gained. She walked through the reconstructed interrogation chamber, now a museum exhibit, and looked at the spot where she had hung in energy restraints. Zyrith had asked to come with her, and she had agreed. He stood beside her now, looking at the same spot. "I come here in my nightmares," Maya said. "I relive those hours over and over." "As do I," Zyrith admitted. "But from the other perspective, I see you suffering and I see myself doing nothing. It haunts me." "Good," Maya said, not unkindly. "It should haunt us both. We should never forget what happened here, but we also shouldn't let it define us. We survived. We changed. We made something better from something terrible." They stood in silence for a while, two former enemies united by shared trauma and shared hope. "I have a question," Zyrith said eventually. "During the torture, when Vorak pushed the device to maximum, you laughed." "Why?" Maya smiled slightly at the memory. "Because in that moment I realized something. Vorak thought he had all the power because he could cause me pain. But he was wrong. The real power was mine because I could choose not to give him what he wanted. I could endure. And that realization was so absurd, so unexpected that I laughed. It was the only rebellion I had left." Zyrith nodded slowly. "That was when I knew humans were different. That was when I began to question everything I had been taught. A species that can find humor in the darkest moments is a species that cannot be conquered." They left the memorial together and walked through the new sections of the colony. Construction workers were busy rebuilding, and families were moving back in. Life was returning to Epsilon 7, stronger than before. That evening, Maya and Zyrith attended a dedication ceremony for the memorial. The colony's governor gave a speech about resilience and hope. She talked about the importance of remembering the past while building toward a better future. When she finished, she called Maya and Zyrith to the stage together. "These two individuals represent the best of what we can be," the governor said. "One showed us that the human spirit cannot be broken. The other showed us that even those raised in darkness can find the light." Together they changed the course of history. The crowd applauded and Maya felt tears in her eyes. She looked over at Zyrith and saw that he was crying too. They had both paid a heavy price to reach this moment, but it had been worth it. After the ceremony, Maya found a quiet spot overlooking the rebuilt colony. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Kyle found her there, now a captain himself, along with Claire and Ben from the original group of prisoners. "Can you believe it?" Claire said, looking at the bustling colony. "A year ago this place was a war zone. Now look at it. People are resilient," Ben said. "We rebuild, we adapt, we keep going. That's what makes us human," Kyle added with a grin. "We're too stubborn to give up." They all laughed at that. It was true. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their sheer refusal to accept defeat. When knocked down, they got back up. When faced with impossible odds, they fought anyway. When confronted with cruelty, they chose kindness. That night, Maya sent a message to Captain Stone, who had become a good friend over the past year. "Thank you," she wrote, "for coming to get us that day, for never giving up, for showing the Kraven what humanity is really made of." Richard's response came quickly. "We never leave our people behind. That's not just a military motto. It's who we are as a species. You proved that when you endured torture to protect others. Xyrith proved that when he chose mercy over cruelty. As long as humans stick to those principles, we'll be okay no matter what challenges we face." Maya closed her eyes and thought about the journey that had brought her here. The torture, the rescue, the recovery, the forgiveness. Every step had been difficult, but every step had led to growth. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to do what was right despite fear. She had learned that enemies could become allies if given the chance. She had learned that one person's choice could ripple outward and change the world. In the months and years that followed, the alliance between humans and reformed Kraven grew stronger. Other species in the galaxy watched with interest as these two former enemies worked together. Some were inspired to make peace with their own rivals. The story of Maya and Xyrith became legend, told on worlds across the galaxy as an example of the power of forgiveness and change. Xyrith eventually wrote a book about his experiences, titled "The Laughter That Changed Me." It became required reading in both human and Kraven schools. In it, he described watching Maya endure torture and realizing that true strength came not from inflicting pain, but from enduring it with dignity. He wrote about the moment he heard her laugh and understood